The hidden cost of buying a new car. In 2026, it's not what you think. Mark is standing in his driveway on a Saturday morning, coffee in hand, looking at his new truck like it just won a championship. He bought it 3 days ago. He already knows the numbers cold because he's repeated them to 4 different people this week. $38,000, 6.9% interest, $612 a month for 6 years. He got that rate down from 7.4 through what he describes as some pretty aggressive negotiating, which mostly involved sitting in a chair for 3 hours while a finance manager left the room twice. Mark feels good about this purchase. Mark did his homework. Mark compared two dealerships and read some forum posts. By every measure Mark has been taught to care about, he made a reasonable decision. Here's what Mark doesn't know. The three numbers he keeps repeating, price, rate, and monthly payment, are not even close to the most expensive part of what he just did. There's a number sitting underneath all of this that nobody at the dealership mentioned, that nobody put on the sticker, and that's going to cost him more than the truck itself. My name is Nick. Today, I'm going to show you the real cost of buying a new car in 2026, and it's not the part you're expecting. Let's start with the part everyone already half knows about because even though it's not the biggest number, you need the full picture before we get to the one that actually matters. A new car loses value the moment it leaves the lot. Industry estimates put first-year depreciation somewhere between 20 and 25%. On Mark's $38,000 truck, that's $7,000 to $9,000 gone in the first 12 months, even though the truck is functionally identical to the one sitting on the lot the day before he bought it. By year 3, a typical new vehicle has lost around 45 to 50% of its original value. By year 5, you're often looking at 60% or more. Mark's $38,000 truck will likely be worth somewhere around $15,000 to $17,000 in 5 years, assuming normal mileage and condition. Most people have a vague awareness that this happens. What most people don't calculate is what that means in actual dollars relative to what they paid in interest and fees to finance an asset that was guaranteed to lose almost half its value before the loan is even half paid off. But depreciation, as brutal as it is not the number I want you sitting with. There's something bigger. Let's talk about interest because this is where the "I negotiated a good rate" feeling falls apart once you see the total dollar figure instead of the percentage. Mark's loan is $38,000 at 6.9% over 72 months. The monthly payment of $612 feels manageable. It fits the budget. It's the number Mark mentally compares to his rent. Here's the number nobody mentions at the dealership. Over those 72 months, Mark will pay approximately $6,080 in interest alone. That's not a typo, and it's not an exaggeration. That's simple loan math on a 6.9% rate over 6 years. $6,000 handed to a lender for the privilege of spreading payments out over time on an asset that is simultaneously losing value every single month of that same loan. Stack that on top of the depreciation we just covered, and by the time Mark's loan is paid off in year 6, he will have paid roughly $44,000 total for a truck that's worth somewhere between $12,000 and $14,000 at that point. That's not a controversial claim. That's just what happens when you finance a depreciating asset at interest over a long enough term. Still, not the number I'm building toward. Keep going. Now let's talk about the costs that show up every month after the purchase, the ones that scale up specifically because the car is new and expensive, not because of anything Mark actually did. Insurance is the first one. A brand new $38,000 truck costs meaningfully more to insure than a 5-year-old version of the same truck, often $200 to $400 more per year, sometimes significantly more depending on the state and the driver's history. Full coverage is typically required by the lender for the entire loan term, so this isn't optional. Over 6 years, that's easily an extra $1,500 to $2,000 compared to financing or owning something older. Registration fees in many states are calculated as a percentage of the vehicle's value, which means a more expensive car costs more to simply exist on the road every single year, regardless of how it's driven. And then there's the parts and maintenance premium that nobody talks about until they're already paying it. Newer vehicles, especially trucks and larger models, often come with larger tires, more expensive sensors, and manufacturer-specific parts that cost noticeably more than equivalent components on an older, simpler vehicle. A brake job or a set of tires on Mark's new truck will likely run 30 to 50% more than the same job on a comparable car from 5 or 6 years earlier. None of these are individually dramatic. Together over 6 years, they're routinely another $3,000 to $5,000 that never shows up in the sticker price, the loan documents, or the conversation Mark had with his friends about his new truck. Here's where it gets almost uncomfortable, because now we're at the number that actually matters most, and it's not a cost you pay out. It's a cost you never see, because it's the version of your money that simply never gets the chance to exist. Mark's monthly truck payment is $612. Compare that to a reasonable, reliable 5-year-old version of a similar truck, purchased used with a smaller loan or paid in cash, where a realistic monthly cost, including a much smaller loan payment or none at all, might land somewhere around $200 a month once you account for slightly higher maintenance on the older vehicle. That's a difference of about $400 a month that Mark is sending toward a new truck instead of anywhere else. Now here's the number that should actually bother you. If Mark had invested that $400 difference every month into a simple index fund instead, at a historical average return of around 7% after inflation, over those same 6 years, he'd have built up somewhere around $36,000. Not the value of the truck, money that's his, growing, available for literally anything else in his life. Extend that same $400 monthly difference out over 20 years instead of 6, still earning around 7%, and you're looking at roughly $204,000 from one decision repeated as a habit about whether to drive a new vehicle or a reliable older one. This is the actual hidden cost of a new car. It's not the price tag, it's not even the interest. It's the specific, quantifiable amount of future wealth that decision quietly erases before you ever get the chance to build it, because that money went toward a depreciating object instead of an appreciating one. I want to be clear about something, because this isn't a video telling you to drive a car held together with duct tape and good intentions. Cars are tools. Reliability matters. Safety matters. If a new car genuinely fits your finances and your priorities, that's a legitimate choice and nobody should feel bad about it. What I'm describing is the gap between what people think they're deciding, a monthly payment they can afford, and what they're actually deciding, which is whether several $100s a month spends the next several decades depreciating in a driveway or compounding in an account. Here's a useful way to actually run this comparison for yourself. Take the monthly payment difference between the new vehicle you're considering and a comparable, reliable used version, typically 3 to 6 years old. Multiply that monthly difference by the number of months you'd realistically keep either vehicle. Then run that number through a basic compound interest calculator at a conservative return assumption. That single calculation will tell you more about the real cost of your decision than any number the dealership ever shows you. So, what does Mark actually do with all of this? He's 3 days into a 72-month loan, so the truck isn't going anywhere, and this isn't a video about feeling bad about a decision that's already made. What changes is the next decision. Mark sits down and runs the math we just covered properly with his real numbers. He realizes the difference isn't really about this truck anymore. It's about whether the next vehicle he buys in 6 years, when this loan is paid off, follows the same pattern or a different one. He starts a small automatic transfer into an investment account anyway. Not the full $400, but $50 a month, treating it as a trial run for the habit he wants to have the next time around. That's the actual takeaway here. Not guilt about the truck in the driveway, a framework for the next decision and the one after that, because car purchases repeat every 5 to 7 years for most people, and each one is a chance to either keep feeding a quietly compounding loss or start a quietly compounding gain. The sticker price was never the real number. The interest rate was never the real number. Even depreciation, as painful as it looks on paper, was never the real number. The real number is the gap between what a car payment costs you and what that same money could have become if it had gone somewhere else instead. You don't have to give up the car you want. You just have to actually know what it costs, the full version, the one that includes the money that never got the chance to grow. Once you see that number clearly, you get to decide on purpose instead of by accident. I'll see you in the next one.